Hey everybody, in this video we are going to be expanding on our discussion of soul connections, which means, of course, Anam, Cara, twin souls, soul mating, karmic connections, and karmic contracts. And I was actually inspired to do this video by a dialogue that I had recently, just a little after I posted the last video I put up where I explained the differences between all kinds of different soul connections and unions, right? Because they are all different. An Anam Cara twin soul connection, Oversoul connection is very different from a karmic contract or karmic relationship or karmic connection of any kind. It's different than a soulmating kind of scenario. Now, this particular dialogue that I had prompted this conversation because I don't really see this conversation going on a whole lot in the online world. And it does have to do with, bringing a resolution to a soul connection that has become challenged in such a way where it has actually created stagnation in the lives, in the stories, in the paths of each individual involved. So it's a little bit heavy considering this is only like part 1, 2, 2.5 of this conversation, but I'm trying not to get my OCD all riled up and, I have to go in order, and this is like super advanced and this is really, really like out there, where we just kind of did the intro a minute ago. And so, sit with me. This can also be probably a very educational story time kind of video for those of you who might prefer that, but also at the same time give you a greater understanding of, the top-down, zoomed out, more cosmic perspective when it comes to approaching matters such as Anam, Cara, twin flames, and oversoul connections, which is what we are definitely talking about in this video. We're not going to be talking so much about karmic connections or karmic relationships, even though there is a bit of that here. We're going to let the story and the scenario do the educating. How do you handle a situation where a mutually understood, mutually felt, mutually manifest Anam, Cara, Oversoul, twin soul connection has become challenged? Especially if it's become challenged or blocked or compromised in such a way that it has created a stagnation or a freezing, so to speak, when it comes to the personal paths and even the personal lives of those involved, right? And when I'm talking about that, I mean, look, it's 1 step forward, 2 steps back, it's Groundhog Day, and this kind of thing can go on for a long time, months, sometimes even years. And when it comes to the story in question, my dialogue was with somebody who was in the process of trying to navigate a resolution for that very experience. So a little bit of a background on the circumstances surrounding this matter. So this could be seen as a triangular type of circumstance. But we are dealing with a situation where we have 2 Anam, Cara twin souls, and then one of them was also married. In this case, though, it's the twins are 2 men, and one is married to a woman. So now, the circumstance around the situation also is a bit different. We're not dealing with newbies. We're not dealing with people that are, fresh on the path. Both of them have a breadth of experience. Both of them have very established talents, and both of them are very, very psychic. So, in short, this is a connection of super best friends on a multidimensional level that ended up having some trouble come up in that course of events, or in that, during that period. So the situation itself in the beginning was a very strong mutual click, very strong mutual appreciation and understanding, right? This was a significant connection, and both could feel it, right? They had all of the signs of a true Anam Cara twin soul connection. Whenever they were in the presence of each other, or communicating with each other, even on the phone, or whenever they were even reaching out to each other, or just sort of witnessing each other, even looking at like text or social media or whatever, they would both have their energies raise in vibration. There were no emotional triggers, there was no negativity, there was no heaviness, there was no draining or vampirism, nothing along those lines. Whenever they engaged and talked with each other, both would be cleansed, cleared, reset, realigned, and in top form. And just everything was, again, very, very much brought to a super fine quality of energy. And they also set a lot of intentions for the future and productivity of that bond. Now, this is something very significant to keep in mind when it comes to true Anam Cara twin soul connections. It's about the Oversoul, which they both share, right? If you are connecting to somebody who's in your Oversoul collective, your Oversoul group, you both have a lot of higher selves in common. You are unified on many levels, way, way high up. Maybe not your personal higher self, but 2, 3 higher selves up, you're starting to be connected, right? That's all part of the same consciousness. By the way, for those of you who are already lost, this is an ongoing conversation on this channel, and I do have more of an interest in presenting this information as the wizard professor. And so I'm going to refer you to a couple of videos down below. The video I talked about earlier in this video, where I talk about different types of soul connections and distinguish between them, and another video where I talk about the process of incarnation, and that does include things like soul connections and oversouls that'll get you up to speed. But again, Oversoul Collective, they are part of the same one, right? They are part of the same population, over 100,000 people that are all connected to the same Oversoul. And so when they would connect, they would link up, they would communicate, whether they made any spiritual effort or not. All of the density, all of the constructs, all of the just sort of phantasmal energy of the lower realm experience, and even the astral experience, just kind of cleared away, and they were set to be, what perfect could be for them, at the moment in question. And so they were like, all right, well, we're gonna unify, we're gonna join, we're gonna team up, we're gonna take on the world together, we're going to be superheroes. That's basically what this was about. That was a big part of what this was about. And I think that and they set off on that journey. Actually, they took their time with it too. They did set off on it though, after about a year. And the connection, of course, did have its challenges, right? It doesn't mean like they buddied up and then, just got in the tank and, drove off into the sunset to go conquer the bad guys or whatever. But it did have its own challenges. It did have its own, interference, right? They both had lives of their own, with their own stories and their own personal journeys. And they still had to work on ways to kind of click, right? Well, what ended up happening eventually, though, was that, and this was not something that was navigated very well, in my opinion, the bond itself began to trigger a lot of insecurities and a lot of unrest in the spouse of the married one. And it got to the point where, even though nothing untoward or sexual or anything like that was going on, the friendship itself, in a way, became kind of like an affair. And that was not the way to go about doing it. And I think that when I reflect back on, you know, what I was shown about what was going on, I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that the spouse actually was not so jealous of the Anam Cara coming into their, you know, into her husband's life. I think that actually this was more about her being jealous of not having a best friend of her own, not having an Anam Cara of her own, which eventually translated to, why don't I have that? And I do feel like I'm being cheated on in some fashion. I'm either being cheated on or cheated out of that kind of connection. And so it's sort of like, all right, that I think, instead of approaching what I feel might have been really the problem, it did kind of become more about the feeling of jealousy getting turned into a discussion of, you know, is this an emotional affair? And unfortunately, because the pair ended up, because they thought that's what they had to do, were being so careful about walking on eggshells around the situation. One of them didn't even know they were doing it, but that it just kind of got worse and worse and worse. But, you know, to be honest, if you looked at any of their text messages or anything like that, and I saw them, I mean, honestly, yeah, there was nothing sexual or anything like that going on. It just looked like a couple of mental patients having, you know, a long game of Dungeons and Dragons to each other, which, why not, right? But eventually the situation, you know, the powder keg went off, and it was not coming back down at all. And the connection itself was there. You know, weirdly enough, even though the social engagement, the collaboration, the dialogue of communicating with each other, being able to, you know, even try to work things out, all of those attempts were sort of made, but at that point, I think just the powder keg itself was treated almost as though it was a sign that this should not be. And there were a couple of other things going on in that situation. Both of the males, both of the Anam Cara in the situation also, you know, were very independent people, and, you know, sometimes they would collaborate on certain projects and things like that, and probably the more independent or isolated of the two, you know, had a tendency to be overly perfectionistic, to such a degree where their idea of perfectionism, you know, was, you know, gritty and caustic. And I think the other one, honestly, wanted to have fun, wanted to play, but I don't think that they could actually fully immerse themselves sometimes in the moment. And so, you know, because of looking over their shoulder half the time. And so both of them, you know, ended up in a situation that was very heavily compromised, both by the environment and their choices of how they were handling the environment. Well, eventually the social aspect of the connection just kind of, you know, distance itself. And while there's still affection and care between them, checking in, saying hi, keeping updates, maybe even, you know, oh, here's a crystal I found, you know, the view, all that kind of stuff. It's a shadow of its former self. But when it comes to how it's affected them on a spiritual level, getting away from the social, but talking more about what has been going on in their worlds because of how things turned out, how things went. You know, again, in the dialogue I was having with one of them, it became very clear that the last, you know, year and a half or so, both of them had stagnated. They had not moved one step forward, or at least not in any significant way, in any of their dealings since the powder keg went off. You know, it's almost like they're caught in the day before the powder keg, or the day after the powder keg. And there's a reason for that. This situation is a perfect example of an oversoul working on its own evolution, its own growth, its own ascent, its own ascension of consciousness, and everyone within that oversoul. This bond, this pair, is just one of two casts of these particular men's characters trying to come together in order to facilitate an evolution in the oversoul, right? In the video talking about soul connections, I mentioned, okay, we have castes in our oversoul. So there is a caste of Nicos in my oversoul group, right? Many, many, many Nicos, all kind of doing their thing, operating their way. And in the case of these two, right, then yes, there's a caste of each of them. But these two are not participating in the unification that's kind of an order from on high at the oversoul level, right? It's stagnating like a foot that's fallen asleep that the brain, the oversoul, can't seem to get to wiggle its toes. So the way that has manifested in their lives or in their worlds has basically brought stagnation and brought a lot of waiting and a lot of, boredom and stuckness, and of course, maybe a missing of each other, right? This awareness of an absence, a lostness, some loneliness, right? This is the person I was supposed to go be the dynamic duo with. This was the person who was gonna go and, we're gonna fucking run over this town. That's gonna suck. And in kind of probing more into the conversation, the guy I was talking to was basically saying that, the married one was saying, well, I've decided to just kind of like hold back, right? Quiet it down. I need to make sure I'm not, causing any more trouble for my wife. I want to make sure that I can keep the peace. I don't want to hurt him. I don't want to hurt me. I don't want to hurt her. I don't want any more drama. I don't want any more of that crazy shit. And so I'm kind of taking a step back and, letting this kind of run its course. Maybe it'll drift away. Maybe it'll dissolve, whatever. The truth of the matter is that while that does happen eventually, that's not what you want to do. 2 reasons. No, 2 and a thumb, 2.5, which is perfect because I was literally about to say actually more than 2. So there you go. The first such reason is that an oversoul will wait some time before making another override or making another push, right? You are still in the scenario that you're in, whether you thought you were or not. If your life has been stagnating, if you've been in Groundhog Day still since the rupture, you're still in the game. So taking a time out in the middle of the game isn't necessarily going to help anyone in the situation. Not him, not her, not you. And if anything, what needs to happen now is instead of recusing yourself, you need to see whether it's working out how to make the Anam Cara connection work with him, or how to work out eliminating the karma and all of the stuff running with her. You're gonna have to explore those things, because number one, even if you decided to just recuse yourself and let things stagnate for another year or 2, eventually your oversoul is going to push for another Anam Cara experience, right? You're at the level of consciousness, you are at a point where it would be good for you to do that. Not to mention, you have your own cast of people. There are many, many, many other yous, thousands of other yous out there that are working on unifying with other hims. And so, however they're going to unify, right? Because again, those pairings are all going to happen in all of their own way. And so this is not necessarily like fighting a tide, but this is just kind of becoming dead weight on the wave. And you're not the only one. Now, I also think that when it comes to dealing with her, that kind of situation is going to have to eventually get dealt with one way or the other, because karma is meant to be resolved. Karma is not the glue that holds anything together. And so, and however it gets resolved, it's going to get resolved. But, you know, if you are dealing with a situation where either A, you can't have a best friend without her thinking you're cheating, or B, she is, and this is what I think is going on, is actually jealous of not having a best girlfriend of her own that can get that intimate and that close with her, and is taking it out on the situation, that is going to keep causing problems, you know, over and over and over again until, again, the situation is resolved, however the situation's resolved. So long as there is sort of this recusing and this waiting, then it's going to stay this way until the next Oversoul kapush, right? And no, the Oversoul isn't always nice or subtle about anything. So my recommendation is, first off, how much do you want to have a close connection with this man? And how much work and how much of an impact do you think it will have, or should have, or could be expected to have when it comes to your situation with your marriage? And then you also got to think about, okay, the boundaries of the marriage. Do we have good boundaries in the marriage? What's fair? What's, you know, what is actually allowing us to live in the world we want to live in? Do we want to live in the same world? So all of those things need to be thought up. Now, after taking some time to contemplate that, right, not 5 minutes, not a knee-jerk reaction, taking some time, there is a way as well, and that's why I saved it for the end, to also release yourself from this unification. As I mentioned before, you know, you're not the only you trying to pair up with all of the other hymns. Your mistake in the situation came from trying to recuse yourself and to step back and just kind of wait for something to blow over or go away. There's always an opportunity, right? This is an effort to unify everybody, as many as possible. Now, what you're going to need to do at that point is you're going to have to, of course, hold court with your higher self and all of your higher levels, right? Your higher self, your oversoul, your guides, your divine teams, all of your divine aspects, and your whole divine expanse. And you're basically going in and evaluating and going, look, I know you want this to happen. I know that he wants this to happen. And you can either A, say, hey, I give it to you to make it happen between us, or B, you can say, I'll connect to another me, and I'll tell all the other me's out there, find your him. I will tell all the other me's out there, the closest, fastest, brightest, strongest one, you know, go to him now. And what happens, you know, again, this has to be sincere. You have to be understanding that this is a very big decision you're making. You may experience a bit of a blue pilling effect. Not gonna lie. It's not gonna like take all your power away or shut off your psychic abilities or put you in a slumber or anything along those lines. But the level ups, the abilities, the changes to your energy fields that were going on when you were with him to prepare you to work with him are gonna get transferred to the other you that you send to him, so that they can go and do that work. And so it can feel almost like a bit of a blue pilling. You're not gonna lose your memory. You're not gonna have, you know, it's not gonna be like this never existed. You're not gonna lose this person because, again, you're part of the same oversoul. Now, you might be asking, well, why can't he replace me? Why can't he go through this and go and ask for a replacement? the challenge, and I'm familiar with your situation, and this could apply to any situation like this that I'll elaborate on right now. The challenge in that situation is that he's already working on, quote, the mission, so to speak, that you guys were setting out on. He's already working on that mission. He can't replace you because you are the one who has to make the choice about whether or not you're on that mission or not. He can't make up that. He can't fire you. He can't do something against your free will. And that's the thing about Anam, Cara, twin flames, Oversoul kin. You can't hurt each other, right? You can't vampirize each other and drain each other's energy. You can't hypnotize each other. You can't violate each other's free will or volition. You can't do those things. Your Oversoul will not allow it. You can't curse each other. You can't banish each other. So the way that you go through this is, look, they're already on the mission. They're doing it. They're already going in that direction. You are the one who has to decide if you're going to be there, because at some level, whether it's on the physical, on the higher self level, or the Oversoul level, or one of your higher levels, is also already on that mission, is also already kind of like, yeah, well, we all agreed we were going to, but now it's challenged. We all wanted to do that, and so we're all going over here. So it's really up to you. Your Anam, Cara, he can't make that call for you, and it wouldn't be right for him to make that call for you. You are effectively, deciding that I think that if this is supposed to happen and the effort is to make this happen, then I want to see it happen, even if it's not with me. Even though it is kind of with a you in that sense. I mean, you're sending another you're sending another you in your cast to go work with him. So it's like, it is you, and it's that kind of thing. But that would be something that you can do as well. But I strongly suggest that you take your time in contemplating what you want to see happen and what your ideal in the circumstances is, and how feasible your ideal is. Because this isn't going to change, because this is going to get things moving again, but it is going to also prompt your Oversoul to, well, just get ready to, all right, you're going to go and work on the next thing. You may need to be ready, because if there's another Anam, Cara there, whether it's, another him or somebody else, you're going to have to be ready, because that might happen. Or you might find that your Oversoul decides that you're going to take on a different task or different quest. A change of venue or whatever is going on. And after watching this, you may find that that is not what you want to do, or that is what you want to do. Again, I can't tell you what to do. You have free will, you have volition. You get to decide which one you want to do. Because again, at the end of the day, Oversoul pushes and moves like this, especially when it comes to uniting Anam, Cara, and twin souls. It's serious business, and it does need to be taken care of. And it does need to be handled with care. And you got to know how to navigate it well. I am not trying to judge anyone for just kind of receding and hanging back, but hanging back is never the answer. I think that in this situation, the answer is, well, it's within a good, strong, conscious, heart-centered decision to either make something happen or to replace oneself, but not recuse oneself. It's a fantastical cosmos that we are all a part of. No separation. So anyway, guys, that is the story time for today's video. I hope you found this helpful, or maybe it just kind of sparked some thoughts or ideas to maybe consider diving into in the future. Let me know what you think in the comments in the down bar below if you have any questions, or maybe you'd like to have something expanded upon. I look forward to hearing from you. So don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. I appreciate it, and I will see you all again soon.